and welcome to the End in Mind podcast. I'm your host, Caitlin, the owner of Meraki Media Management. The End in Mind is a place where we come to share stories, tips, and strategies of many entrepreneurs, creatives, business owners, and just some people that aren't willing to live the traditional lifestyle. We talk about how to live outside of the box today and how to incorporate what really is important in your life to keep that end goal always in mind. Again, if you would like to reach out to me in any type of way, you can find me on Instagram at Meraki_media_management, and I hope to hear from you all soon. Thanks so much and enjoy our show. Okay. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the End in Mind podcast. I'm your host, Caitlin. I have an awesome guest with me here today. Kate does some awesome things. Caitlin, we're all on the same page today. But this is my guest, Kate. Thank you so much for coming on, Kate. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you do? Because I don't want to steal your thunder. And I just think it's amazing what you do for so many young entrepreneurs, women, all ages.
I love this so much. I said this to you the first time we chatted. I love your energy so much, Caitlin. I'm so excited to be here. Yeah, just what I do right now, mostly you can call it a number of different things, but mostly it's confidence coach. And this kind of stemmed from being a really insecure young woman, trusting other people's opinions over my own, believing other people had what it took and I didn't, and really taking in people's feedback as though it was my truth. I never questioned it. I never knew I could question it. And so just slowly going through life experiences and having lots of good failures, learning that actually I am in way more control than I realized, had me want to show other people, especially women, that you have so much more power than you realize. And it just takes you doing the thinking work to really find your jewels, your wisdom, and to run with them with everything you've got.
Oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. I love everything you just said. I'm like, can I bottle that up and keep that on my desk,
Yes.
That's so inspiring. And, this is kind of going off of our question, so I hope you're okay with that. I was watching your live today and I was going through all of your reels over the past few weeks, just kind of connecting on Instagram. And I love what you said about, I didn't even know that I could not take on their opinions, because that's something I definitely struggle with. I know my listeners do too. Can you tell me what that awareness was like as you were going through that journey and gaining, your strength back, basically?
Yeah, what I heard a lot was being a people pleaser. Whenever I talked to friends about how frustrated I was or how I felt so stuck, taking on everybody's opinions and trying to not unsettle anybody, trying to make everybody else feel good, but at my expense, they all said, okay, you're a people pleaser. And now when I look at people pleaser, to me, this isn't the official definition, but I really believe that it means that you don't know where you're going, so you're trusting someone else will know. But when you take in a bunch of opinions, you get all kinds of different directions. It creates more confusion.
Yeah.
And so as soon as I realized I can step back and think, do I want to trust what they say? Do I want to believe what they say? Or do I want to believe there's something more true? Then I'm choosing what I want to believe and I'm embodying that. And just that small change, it declutters so much of opinions and what did they mean when they said that? And where were they coming from? And what do they want to gain from this? And just being, what do I want? And if it's meant to be easy, how do I do it? And then I just let go. I love a book and it said, what you think of me is none of my business.
Ooh,
it's one of my favorite books. It's like a little bite-sized candy book. It's so good, packed with goodies. I highly recommend it. That's a read over that I'll read many times. But now it's way less about what people think. And I don't want it to sound like it's super easy and anybody can just stop caring. But when you uncover why you care and decide, is that necessary? And you really do the thinking work, you can unleash, you can let go from that and just really embody who you want to be. And then guess what? People stop giving you their opinions because they have no idea what you're doing.
Yeah.
When you stop asking, they stop telling. And then you're like, wow, this is what I've been working for.
I love that transition because I was currently in that, and I think if you want to be a successful business owner, especially as a woman, a lot of my listeners, we also talk about how we're like all highly sensitive people. So,
Yes.
and just kind of owning that because it's a gift at the same time, like we can reframe our mindset around it, but that awareness of knowing that we're sucking in all of this energy constantly, that's why we're exhausted at the end of the day. That's why we're pulled in a million different directions, exactly like how you're saying. And especially launching a business, everybody thinks they know or have something to say about it, like about what you should be doing, I guess, in my experience. And I love those people. A lot of the time they are trying to add value, but it ends up deterring us from our journey, exactly like what you were saying.
Yeah, like a confused mind says no. The more opinions we take in, we confuse ourselves. And it just requires more work. Like, why not just immediately eliminate half the thinking power by getting rid of that, other people's opinions? And I really don't believe you should ask anybody for their advice or what to do unless they're where you want to be, or there's somebody who has a clear vision of where you're going and they are genuinely giving you good information.
Yeah. 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 And I think also because we're both in the coaching world and we worked with coaches and everything. In my experience, when I've had a coach tell me exactly what to do, even if it's something like meditating, I will revolt against. I am like, I'm not doing that. They think they can tell me what to do. And I end up going in the complete opposite direction, And now I find when I'm coaching people, especially when I'm about to give them a tool, to add to their toolbox, as we may call it, in coaching, I'll say only if this resonates with you,
Yes.
I think the language around giving advice can be really powerful too. If someone is asking for your opinion and you don't know what to do, sometimes premising it with something like that can make it gentle,
I also think we need to talk less. That has been a huge learning curve, is biting my tongue with everyone, with my sister, with my mom, with my family, with friends and other entrepreneurs. We all want to share our opinion, show how smart we are, show what we know. And then, I can't remember who it was. I think it was Will Smith when I read his book, but he said that his grandmother, I think it was Will Smith, he said his grandmother didn't talk unless it was adding value. So he said she was listening and that when she talked, everybody listened. And so I thought, how wonderful would that be if you cherished your words and you just only use them for big impact?
That's beautiful.
Right.
So powerful, to stand in your own power,
Yeah. And not cheapen your own advice.
Yeah.
When we're reactive and we're trying to prove something, you always got to be asking why am I sharing this? What is my goal in this conversation? And one of the reasons I really believed, okay, I'm going to do it, I want to become a coach, is because I got great mentorship about you and your opinion don't matter. Yeah. You're simply helping them reflect so that they can find the answers they already know.
Yeah. I love
and
that.
It's so much smoother when you teach somebody to trust themselves. It is so much smoother. You're not responsible for their outcome.
Totally. It's so true, especially when you're in coaching. In my experience, even just recently, as I've kind of opened up this part of my life, it's brought up other limiting beliefs within myself, can I handle this? Am I confident enough? Who am I to be adding value to their life? It's all these things come up. And then as I've worked with these women, they're so happy and they love it and they feel like they're growing. So it's kind of like a mirror, as well, as it's reflecting back to you. But I love that you said saying less. That's actually something I've been trying to do more and almost doing everything that I go about my life or my day in with more intention, behind it.
Yeah. The upfront thinking work saves us so many headaches, so much pain, so much wasted energy. Just doing the thinking work, even the night before, what do I really, really want to accomplish tomorrow? And I heard this great idea that you make a list. I can't remember the number, but you make a list. And then the next night you look at the list and anything you didn't get done, this is my coach shared this with me. You either delegate, you delay, or you delete, but you can't keep repeating the same thing every day. And then that weighs on us. And then you start to tell yourself a story about how you don't follow through or how you can't manage your time. All of that is wasted. When you have a take charge, okay, do I delete, delegate, or delay? Then there's no like blame or whatever. And as an entrepreneur, that will help you move forward and not get stuck on just keep looking at the stuff and going, oh God, I didn't do it. Oh, another day. Oh my God, it's been a week and I never did that. You're holding yourself back with that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's great advice. That's another thing that my coaches will tell me too. She always tells me, cut the stories. She's like, the stories are bullshit, you know?
Yeah.
And she'll see me start to spiral like on our call, you know, if I'm like really in a tornado state. And she's like, stop, cut the stories, you know? And it's like so impactful because I kind of need somebody to like call me out. And it's so funny that you mentioned earlier about your coach as well with that nobody really cares, you know, and there's like some peace in that because that was a huge part of my boyfriend's and my relationship. Like really early on, I struggled with a lot of anxiety around things I would be saying to his family, to his friends. You know, I wanted to be this like perfect person.
Yeah.
And he was like, Caitlin, they're not leaving here thinking about every little thing that you said, you know? He's like, they're on to the next thing. Like they're doing their own lives. They're thinking about themselves, you know? And when we all live in our own brains, we can sometimes get like tormented by our own thinking and our thought patterns. But yeah, I love that you said like stepping back and being aware of that can heal it all. You know, it really can. The awareness helps a lot.
Yeah. And another thing that keeps coming up for me actually is that's what's stopping people from taking a chance on starting their business, that business that's on their heart, because they're overthinking it and they're thinking only about themselves. Yeah. And so like, I love Sarah Blakely. I think we've talked about her before, the founder of Spanx. And she always says, I talk to her. I'm honest with her. I'm vulnerable with her. 100% of her focus is on who she's serving.
Yeah.
She's not talking about her, how she feels, what she thinks. And I just think that that's a real lesson for all of us, especially if you're going to start your own business. And I've heard this so many times recently. Well, somebody else is probably already doing it, or this market is saturated, or all of the negative junk that keeps us stopped. And the truth is, if you've actually started a business, there is so much to do that it takes so much to follow through and keep going, that you can understand why a lot of people don't make it. So if it's on your heart, know that it is not a thick group of people around you. It's those who can persevere and hold their will and focus on what they want. They're the ones who are continuing forward. And then guess what? There's nobody around.
Yeah.
It's actually pretty easy to succeed if you just have the willpower to go for it.
Totally. It's so true, you know. Even in other like group coaching programs I've been in, and I wonder if you can resonate with this too. As I was going through my group coaching and like I was doing my own personal work, then I could see so many other just women, like just like me, you know, we're at the same point. And they were talking about this, like almost overly consuming podcasts or going and getting too many coaches. Like I'm guilty of all of this. I'm like in the midst of that right now, you know, getting too much perspective at once is so much more crippling for me in the long term. You know, it'll sometimes hold me back for like 3 months as I'm over consuming information, you know. So setting that boundary was huge for me early on. And I'd love to know more, you know, about your experience with that. And even if you've had clients combat that, and if it's, you know, reading, because I think everybody consumes information differently, you know. So can you break that down like a little bit more for us and what that may be showing up for in our listeners?
Yeah. You know, it's so interesting, like the psychology of most people, like the stuff we beat ourselves up for, procrastination, everyone is the same. In this work as an entrepreneur, it is so tempting to consume because learning feels good. Oh, that was interesting. Oh, that felt good. But taking action can feel a little bit, can feel bad, or it can feel unsure. It can make you feel unsettled. And that's where the gold is, though. Absolutely. I'm the same. I used to go to everybody to hear their wisdom. Well, it's no different than asking people for their opinions. Yes. You're getting too many. So somebody told me early on, thank God, pick a coach and stick with them. Like follow their process, follow their suggestions, and take out all the other noise. Even good intentioned, successful people, you got to stay focused or you will never hit your mark. the other thing is choosing what you're consuming. So like, I also think of wasted time of stuff that we do out of comfort, out of routine habit. And really, if you want to grow and you want to do it in the most easy way, you need to remove the time that you waste talking, gossiping, like talking about stuff or people and gossiping or watching those shows that are really just like, and if they'd help you chill, that's different. But I'm talking, if it takes up hours and hours of your day, every day, you're avoiding your passion. And guess what? That's why you don't feel good. That's why you feel unsettled, because you know your body's out of alignment with what you were meant to do.
Yeah. My gosh, it's so true.
And you can always be learning something specific, like a skill set. I've learned so much mindset. Now I'm like, teach me the skills.
Yeah. Yeah.
So everything I teach my clients or coach my clients with is like taking action, and that's how they're learning. So all of the exercises are taking action with the information, because that changes how we interpret the information.
That's great advice. That's so true. I'm a firm action type of person, you know. I think it's kind of in my blood or something, like that's kind of how my family was. So it was really, that was weird for me early on when people were like, you know, over consuming, because I was like, well, I'm exhausted. Like I'm tapped out, you know, like I'm like, if I'm communicating with 10 people in one day at a networking event, like I'm done for the rest of the day, you know, especially early on when it was new and like, you know, everybody's older than me at these like at-face networking events 3 years ago. I'm like exhausted, but the action was exactly what drove the business, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think doing that audit of every task you do as an entrepreneur, was that worth my time? Was that a value? Or is there any reason that I need to do it again? Because we do like a lot of the things that we do, we think, oh, I'm perfecting it, or I'm finessing it, or unless you're actually doing something that's moving your business or you forward, you might have to let go of that easy thing that makes you feel good.
Oh my gosh, it's so true. Like I have to share this story, and I feel like my friend will be fine with this. She obsesses over her website. Like every time we're on the phone, at one point she's talking about the website, you know? And I love her dearly, but I was like, you've got to just cut this story. Like you're not getting clients because of your website. And I feel like intuitively now, like our listeners need to hear this. Like if your feed doesn't look perfect, if your website doesn't look perfect, you can still be making money, you know? You should be still making money, you know?
Yeah.
Like nobody really cares that much about your website layout, you know?
Yeah. There is that saying, 80% of what you do is not getting you any results. Like the 20% is getting you results. And so you want to get better at weeding out that 80% and getting stronger at that 20%. And sometimes it's an awkward phone call, because I know people have things about being on the phone, but that could have just made you money or got you an opportunity that will make you tons of money in the future that you put off and tinkered with your website or did something on your social because you wanted to feel like you were doing something, but you knew it wasn't creating income or moving you forward.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so true. It's like, and especially for me, the communication was what totally made my business soar. You know, it was like, if I'm communicating with new eyeballs every day, this business will grow, you know? And that was just the only challenge that I gave myself early on, because everything else seemed so lofty and like so far away in the future, you know? So how do you kind of break that down with your clients? Like, is it based off of their personal life? You know, because I know you work with many other types of walks of people that may have corporate jobs and things like that, you know?
Yeah. I always start with, what do you want your day to look like? What do you want your like end result? Like, when would you say, holy heat, I am so successful right now. This is everything I wanted. Plus, what does that look like?
Yeah.
And you got to keep going back to it, because even as people have success and then they start getting busier and their work gets a little unbalanced with their personal life, and it's like, yeah, you got the success you want, but is that how you want to spend your days? Burnt out, wiped out, and got nothing extra to live your life or for the people you love. So it just keep going back to, what do I want my days to look like? And that's where you can live your goal life now. Like, people always think it takes money, but it doesn't. And that, oddly enough, when you start to find that balance, the money comes. Yeah. When you're feeling your best and you're taking care of yourself and you're making yourself a priority, then you can maintain that, as opposed to the roller coaster of like work your arse off, get burnout, tank for a couple weeks, then try to recover, all while beating yourself up in the head. Like, it's amazing any of us accomplish anything with the way that our brains are wired.
It's so true. Like, stepping back, I'll share this with our listeners too. Like, even today, I'm like laying in bed, like it's early, and I'm trying to amp myself up for the day. Like, find this story, where I'm like, wow, you did that for yourself. I can't even remember what it was. It was something about like, I think it was actually buying my first home, because I was actually like manifesting. I like to go on Zillow in the mornings when I can't sleep, or like I just am not ready to get up yet, and I'll manifest. I'll just look at beach houses and it's like fun. So that's what I'm doing. And I'm thinking about this story of like how I bought my house and how great that made me feel. And literally, it must have been seconds. I don't even know how the thought got here, but in the next second, I'm beating myself up about like, paying the mortgage next month or something. It's like this crazy connectivity in my brain. I'm like, how in 1 minute I'm like amping myself up for the day, and then the next I'm like, you're chicken shit, It's like, what is going on? And I think when we also can step back and like diffuse from that too, it's like, damn, like I'm insane. Why am I behaving like this, And how can I not distract myself, but maybe just become more aware? Like, do I get up? Do I get a glass of water? Do I change up what I'm doing? Since clearly this isn't getting me the result that I want currently, to like be in this manifesting creator moment. It wasn't happening today.
Yeah. I just like, when I think about that, I think that whatever vision you're coming up with, you got to hold the same vision. So what I would say is, once you find one of those beach houses that you love, hold it. Because if we keep looking to different things, then I really believe God or the universe going, okay, well, she hasn't decided yet, so let's hold off. Whereas if you get really clear and you keep going back to that one place, and you more think about the people you'll be with, the conversations you'll have, the laughter, the smell of the food you'll be making, and you really go there emotionally, then it becomes a good spot only. But when you start to consider what the mortgage will be of this beach house, I think use your reasoning mind. Like, I remember when I first finished school, I can't remember if it was like, if I made $20,000, or maybe it's less than that because it was a part-time job, I was like, oh my God, look at all the money I'm making. And then all of a sudden, when you make 50,000, that becomes your norm, and you can't imagine making the 20,000. And then when you go to 100, same thing. So like, even though when we're thinking of that beautiful goal and vision, and then we start to think about what it would cost, you got to just know that you're going to feel as comfortable as you feel with what you make right now. And like, try to just remind yourself, there's the proof. I get used to any amount of money, and just allow that to be true.
I love that advice, because it is true. Like, we're so adaptable as humans, we're constantly changing, growing, and that's great advice, like coming back to the logic of it all. And I love how you said sitting in that moment. I love to imagine us, for some reason, like going to the beach house at Christmas time. It's like so weird. Like, why in the off season? I'm like, yeah, But I just imagine it, and I feel like it is helpful. It's helpful to think of an actual scenario and play it out in your brain. And I love how you said, like, when you do the morning routine or what their days look like, do they get down to the nitty gritty of, this is what the coffee smells like. Like, I'm having a cappuccino versus a latte. Like, maybe on Wednesdays I have the cappuccino, Thursday I have the latte,
The details, that's where the goodness is, and that's what makes it happen faster. Those are the accelerators. Every time you make a decision on the details, you're accelerating how fast it's going to come to you.
Wow.
Because decisiveness, yes, that attracts for sure. And so Bob Proctor is one of the mentors that I learned from, and he worked with Sandy Gallagher. And so she went to look at beach houses. And I can't even remember, but when I'm looking at it, I'm thinking it's got to be like, I'm probably way off, but just go with me. So say it's like a $12 million beach house. And she's looking at it, and she called him. She's like, oh my God, I've never, ever paid that much for a place and all this stuff. And she started panicking. He's like, well, if you believe the work we do, he said, I want you to send out invites to Christmas dinner at your house with that address. And she didn't even have an offer in yet. She didn't know if there'd be a bunch of offers. And she said she listened to him. She sent all of her family cards saying, I want you to come to my new beach house for Christmas. And she's like, she didn't own it yet. But she then spent every day thinking about that specific house. She thought about how it would be decorated, what food she would serve, who would be there. And she said, sure enough, all the things that needed to fell into place. She had enough money. She got a better deal on it. And then she showed us pictures on this like screen, and it is unbelievable. And she's like, I wouldn't have ever believed it was true, but he made me take action that provoked emotion. So she was like, oh my God, that gets you into activity.
Yeah.
So sometimes when we just visualize and we stay in a safe space that's kind of vague and just like, oh, that's pretty, you're not creating emotion in you. Like, holy smokes, this is happening.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's great. How you say, I have to write that down too. I'm like, we have so many good titles coming my way, like details, manifestation. Like, I'm so excited. I love how you said that, the details in the manifestation and evoking emotion, because that really resonates with me. A lot of my childhood, which I share on the podcast, I'm sure you're familiar with this, was, just challenging, not perfect by any means. Like, my mom struggled financially a lot. So manifesting financial things, like my home that I live in now looks similar to a house that we almost bought when I was younger. And it's like the house that I wanted so bad. I thought about it all the time. It's the same exact layout, same floors, like really funny how similar it was. But it was easier for me to manifest then because I had like the sky was the limit, it felt like. Yeah. And then I've started to pack on, like the financial stress. It's like stress. And instead of me just having no worry about the stress, because that's really what manifesting is, like I started manifesting this when I was 15 years old. I had no clue how I would afford it,
Yeah. Yeah, it's a bit of allowing. And another thing that I've been touching on a lot lately is faith. Faith is believing and having an expectation. So do you really have faith in anything? Or do you hope? So having expectation, it will provoke, again, emotion in you. And that's where I like to do things where people put themselves in a position where they have to do it. There's no backing out. And then to see what happens. Like, my big example that I use is my fear of public speaking. And I think I may have told you this already, but my boss said, oh, you did all the work, Kate. You should come so that you can see them seeing your information. I was like, oh, I got a new suit. I got new shoes. I got a new bag. And when I think about all of that, I was manifesting. I didn't realize I'd be on stage, but I sure looked like I was meant to be on stage. And then when she said, oh, by the way, after we shook 24 executives' hands, you're presenting. I was like, oh, I thought I might be sick. And then I had to hold the podium because my legs shook. And I don't know if you've ever done, what are those speaking classes where you go and learn how to public speak? Yeah. They say videotape yourself, you find your thing. My girlfriend held her breath. My legs shook where I was shaking the podium around. None of these men in this room could look at me. But then when they all left, they're all high-fiving me. They're all saying how great it was that I got up there and I had great knowledge and great content. And I swear to God, it was like I just won $1 million. I was ecstatic. I'm a public speaker. I didn't die. We need to find situations like that grow us and bust open our beliefs about what we're capable of. Because they're all self-made. It's our own limitations that hold us back.
Wow. I love that story. You didn't share that with me before, but that's amazing. I love that. And I resonate with that. It's so funny. Like, I was a shaker, but like I shook my hands. It was like so obvious, with like the paper and stuff. I mean, with your legs, it's obvious. It's scary when you're public speaking.
Yeah, it is. It's like, it's so scary because you don't know what to expect.
Yeah.
So even though my legs shook and I shook that thing around and none of them could look at me, but I knew what would happen. And then I could leave and work on it. Okay, well, now that I know I could do it, what else can I do to increase my confidence as a speaker? And then I have actionable steps. And then my confidence grows. And then before you know it, I have all kinds of people. Kate, how do you public speak like that? And I think, holy smokes, when I think about that day, how terrified I was. oh, I want that transformation for everybody I know, just to feel that like, wow, what I thought was true about me was not true at all.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And in a few hours, like, it's like the span of time that you just showed yourself.
Yeah, that's where quantum leaps happen. It doesn't have to take a long time to expand yourself. You
Yeah.
just have to do the Mel Robbins thing, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Because when you count down, have you read that book?
I've heard about it. A lot of my coaches tell me about it.
Yeah, because when the idea is the psychology behind it, when you count down, your brain actually can't keep thinking the thought it was thinking. It stops to go, what are we counting down for? And so you can break a panic habit or a panic thought. And so when you say 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and you do, your body just goes into, okay, let's do this, figure it out, as opposed to stop her, this is going to be disastrous.
Yeah.
So I'm always searching for ways to feel those butterflies, because that is like your secret, that you're expanding, you're growing.
Yeah, that's great advice. Now, if somebody comes to you and they don't know what, maybe their blocks or their nervous moment would be, what do you do exercises with them? Does it take them some time to gain some awareness around what that might look like for them, or are they most of the time aware, do they know?
I think that most people come to you with everything that they can't do and what's wrong with them. So it's very easy to see, okay, well, let's bust that. Let's prove that that wasn't true. And sometimes, it doesn't have to take standing in front of a room, because I know public speaking is like one of the top fears for people. Even something small, like another person doesn't know what's best for you. Learning how to like set a boundary and take a decision without asking, say, their dad. If they always ask their dad for advice, okay, I want you to make a big decision, like purchasing a car or whatever you think of as big, and I don't want you to ask. And just to go through that emotion of like, oh, this is so different, and what will he think, and how do I feel? What if I screw up? But that's the public speaking. That's jumping from an airplane. That's like, figure it out while you're going. Learn how resilient you are, and that's where your confidence grows. The more you challenge yourself and question everything, you will be blown away by your own potential.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love how you said question everything.
Mm-hmm.
That really resonates with me, especially when I started my entrepreneurship journey. And then I went through my holistic journey as well. And it was very like, whoa, am I on the same planet? Like everything I've been told forever throughout my life, through my ancestors, like everything is wrong or just different. It's not how maybe I interpreted their perception of it, and that was like a huge veil was lifted for me. I'm like, whoa, like opportunity is literally at my feet. And I remember like this one awareness day that I had, it was so heavy. Like I felt like I could feel it, like I felt like I could feel the quantum leap, like exactly how you're saying. It's like, you're excited, but you're also like nervous. Like, did I just do that? Like, am I having these revelations? It's like, am I here? I'm like pinching myself literally. And that's one of the things that keeps me coming back to my entrepreneurship journey every time. Like, no matter how hard it is, no matter how much some days, we want to quit. Like, it's just honest, like I just try to be as honest as I can. My journey has not been linear. It's not been perfect. But it always has me come back for that emotion, because I know that that's where I'm pushing myself, and that's where I'll grow the most. But now I'm, of course, learning different avenues. It just kind of came with business first,
Yeah. Yeah, I think the cool thing about leaning into your fear and to the unknown is that you will never be more focused in your life. It's like running into a fire. You're not thinking about yesterday. You're not thinking about what someone said. You're not thinking about people's opinion. You're just like going to save your life. That's how focused you want to get. And so when you talk about waking up in the morning and wanting to get focused, like I'm jumping out of bed because I'm like, I am chasing that next opportunity, because the last time I tried and I failed, but I know if they give me another shot, I'm going to crush it. And then it's like, I can't wait to crush it. Okay, but how do I make sure I'm going to crush it? Okay, I should come up with a plan. Like, it doesn't take work. It's just there. Okay, now what do I got to do? How do I got to do? And it gets you excited for life. And you can apply this even if you're not an entrepreneur, even if it's in your personal life, like people who aren't comfortable with saying I love you, or somebody who is uncomfortable with hugging or forgiveness. Like, try those things. And then when you see how you kind of fumbled with it and it didn't quite feel as good as you thought, let me try again, because the next time I forgive someone, it's going to feel even better.
Yeah.
You can
Wow.
apply this to everything.
That's such great advice. I like hope I've been taking notes, but I hope our listeners are taking notes, because that is like, that's the key, I believe, to also healing, traumas and wounds. It's like self-love is everything, and my self-love journey has definitely taught me that I thought I loved myself and maybe I didn't as much as I needed to, and I loved how you said just keep coming back and keep going to it, because it was so unnatural for me. I was such a workaholic to like put down work and like color. Like today, even before we got on, I set this intention. I'm like, at 4:00, when I'm done writing about our podcast episode for my content next week, I'm going to color outside because it's a gorgeous day, and that's like a form of self-care. But before, hell no, like I just would work myself until 6 p.m., easily.
Yeah. Yeah. And testing yourself to see what feels good, like that is beautiful. I love that. I always have all my paint stuff out so I'm ready to go. So I have no excuses and I'll just go. Yeah, that's so beautiful. I love that.
I'm so glad that you paint too, because like the artistry is really fun. And I think a lot of us are creatives, but when we get into this space, at least in my experience with some of the women that I coach as well, they're starting a business out of their creativity or, something that they love. And then it kind of can diminish the love, when you have to perform. It's like, I like to call it my creativity meter. And I'll tell my clients, like, the reason why I had to partner with some copywriters, because they're amazing and they have the rhetoric that I just can't come up with at the creativity level that they need me to for like all of these clients at once. And it can sometimes suck that out of you. Like I lost myself there for a few months, and just coming back and like coloring or painting or doing photography where it's not like stressful, like no one needs to look at it, it's just me. It's been so much more fun, and it's really helped me like connect to my intuition and myself again. It feels.
Yeah, I was in an incredible masterclass where the person was speaking on how we're kind of trained to be like robots. And we were trained by that by society because they can monetize you then they can monetize your efforts. And to realize that we all have flow, like there's certain times we're going to be really creative and there's certain times we need to be introspective, just to realize that and not beat ourselves up, because we are not robots that can perform the exact same level every day. And the faster actually you accept that, you'll probably be more productive more often. You'll probably provide the creative thoughts. But yeah, as soon as you work for something, it changes it.
Yeah.
So you got to be able to let that go and just be at ease with yourself. You set the bar, you set the expectation. So if you're creating for a certain someone, as long as they know that you're both creating a healthy expectation and boundary, then you can make anything work. You just got to communicate what you expect and what you want.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's so true. And I like to think like, especially as some of our listeners may be building their team as well, it's like two minds. Like if you can make them come together, like I feel like the team comes out with this stuff now and I'm like, this is gorgeous. It's like so exciting. And I love how it's kind of actually going back to one of the things that you said at the beginning of our episode, which was releasing some of that like control and the pressure that we all put on ourselves through society and all these just natural things that come down from the top down at times, it feels like. But when I can release that, and also not be like micromanaging them, which I really try not to do. Like I try to watch my managerial style. They perform and they create these masterpieces, and they're having fun doing it. It's like not pressure. They're just excited to show up and like be creative that day,
Yeah, totally. The release, people feel it energetically that you're trusting. You can still have expectations and release.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Because that was really hard, expectations for me, especially because I'm an only child. I've never had to like communicate with siblings. It's like really funny. Like my peers, I oftentimes have a more difficult time communicating with than like people older than me, because I was like always with older people my whole life. It's so funny. Like even a lot of my friends, my boyfriend's like older than me, just everybody's older than me all the time, but still being able to have the expectation without having that control, it's like gray area. And that was a huge lesson for me. I was always like, okay, well, if you think this way, then you're a bad person, It was like these stark rules that I had put on myself or on people, kind of judgmental, I would say. But now that I've found that there is gray area with all of this, it's so much more fluid. It's like exactly how you said, you can still have the expectation and you can still produce something that's great without being controlling at the same time,
Yeah, because it's the energy that you do things in. Like you can still give someone tons of feedback, be really clear, and like it's not micromanaging, but you're being detailed in your feedback. But if you're doing it from a loving, like you've got this, I'm so excited for you type of energy, then people are going to respond to that differently than the person who constantly looks to criticize. And like, that's not right. That's not right. That's not how I would do it. That's going to fizzle anybody. Nobody's going to feel inspired to work for that. But I think as the business owner or as the entrepreneur starting out, the sooner you can delegate and release that need to do everything, you will have such freedom. And I just heard somebody say that the sooner you can delegate, the more money that you're going to make. Because if you stay in your zone of genius and you allow other people to join your team in their zone of genius, like that's beautiful. That's where magic happens.
Yeah. Yeah. I couldn't agree more. It's so true. It's like, even if it's not immediate, you can also feel it because you're not doing like the heavy lifting, so it's created a lot of space in my life too, which has been really helpful, with outsourcing a lot of our work and just building the team literally.
Yeah, and sometimes your team is your home team, like hiring cleaners or hiring an assistant. Like I heard somebody hired an assistant they give them their kids' school schedule at the beginning of the year. So if there was a theme day or a bake sale, that person took care of it. Or they said, here's all the birthdays that I have this month. Can you get the gifts and the cards? And like, there's so many people and so many rando jobs out there that if it's something that takes you away from like your time with your family, because you're always at work, take some of those other jobs off of you and just enjoy the time with the people you want to.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's great advice. I love that. I have a house cleaner because I'm like, I don't have time, and it stresses me out because I'm a clean freak. So when it's not clean, like even today, like before she comes, I like find myself wiping things. I'm like, go downstairs, what are you doing? Go to your office. But it's so true. Like being able to just know that I have someone for that designated job and it's going to get done and I don't have to like rethink about it. It's also the thought waves, exactly like how we're talking about creating more of that space in your brain so that you actually can be creative and show up, in your zone of genius, how you said.
Yeah, and being intentional, not shaming yourself because you need cleaners or because you need an assistant to get the gifts. The idea that we have to do everything, be everything, is what is burning out, and it's what's causing mental health issues, honestly. Like, I feel like some people are like, I can never get under this cloud. And it's because you need to let yourself out. You need to give yourself an out, ask for help, get the help. And people want to help. Like when you ask for it, people are happy to help.
Yes. And like the right people, like how you're saying, like, go to the people that you feel like you can gravitate towards and are going to give you advice, whether that's working with someone like me or with Kate and really helping you find that freedom in, the relief of like letting yourself not be perfect, like nobody's perfect ever.
Actually, and I just had something go down that was pretty significant with one of my kids. And I was like, I don't ask people for their advice. I don't ask for input, but I was struggling. Yeah. And so I asked a friend of mine who's in the same industry, the same space. And we've grown together, we studied together. And of course, she asked me like, okay, I'm outside of this. So here's questions I would ask. And it was exactly what I needed to hear. And so, yeah, like find somebody who is on the right wavelength, that's not going to have you spiral or tell you how to parent or how to do things, but somebody who actually gives you some reflections that you can figure out for yourself.
Yeah.
When you're in the fog of like a negative emotion, sometimes you need somebody to pull you out of that.
Totally. Oh my gosh, it's so true. Like, especially after these past few years, especially with being a parent, or if you have a dependent that's,
Yeah.
depending on you, it's like you need to be there, and you want to be there, and you want to show up how you want to be. And you don't always, like, for myself, even in my relationship, I was showing up with this negative energy, or just in this way that I was so inauthentic to, like, how I actually wanted to be loving and catering. And it wasn't just showing up in one relationship for me, it was showing up in multiple areas of my life. And it started to make me go insane. Like, I was like, what is wrong with me? Why can't I fix this? And yeah, I went to therapy, we unpacked it, and I started to discover, like, yeah, I was angry for a long time, like,
Yeah.
people go through some stuff, and that's okay. Like, I don't have to carry that crap with me for the rest of my life. One thing that always helps me too is, like, tomorrow I can always be better. I can always be, 1% better. Like we were saying on our first call, it's every day we can just improve or lean further into that person. And I love how you said asking for advice and getting it when you need it
Yeah.
intuitively,
Yeah. Yeah. And even when I think about the person that I went to, she was where I want to be, because I
Mhm.
knew she would be calm and level and positive and loving. And it was like, that's what I want. I
Yeah.
want somebody who's in that space. Whereas before, I would have been like, hey, what do you think? Oh my God, what do you think? And call everybody in this situation and create a whole storm. Like, even I'm learning this when I'm teaching my own daughters. You can create your own storm
Oh,
and you get something out of it. You could get sympathy, you could get attention. And so, why are you doing that when
yeah.
you could calmly deal with it and have it over with? Like, what is it about it that we like to create drama? And so catching that can change your life, because maybe all of the stress in your life is self-made. Well, I know it is, but you got to
Yeah.
figure out how.
Yeah, yeah. Like, for the people that aren't aware, it's like, okay that you're not aware. Love that you brought up the drama. And, like, I know we're coming up on time, but I want to talk about this for a few minutes if you still have some time, because I was just actually talking about this with my client on the phone this morning. We were doing some coaching, and I actually had this conversation with my coach last week. And the drama stories is what causes me to, like, spiral out of control. And it comes back to, again, like, a pattern that my family had for years, and it sucks me in. It's like a tornado. Like, I imagine myself, and there's like a vacuum on the other side of the room, and I'm just, like, slowly being sucked up to the vacuum. And those stories, like, because I'm a highly sensitive person, again, which is a story that I'm telling myself, but I'm impacted by it. And it'll sometimes impact me, like, for the entire day if I can't snap out of it. Of course, depending on the drama story, like if someone passed away or something, there's also, like, a time for grieving. But there doesn't need to be this storm and, like, constant conversation and the spiraling. Like, for me, it's like the never ending talking, that drives me crazy.
Well, I would also ask, like, when it pulls you, what are you getting to get away from? Because even some people who are constantly sick, like, is it really that you don't like your job? Is it really that you're stressed about something you have to do that you're putting off? Like, we always are benefiting, or we perceive a benefit, even if it's a bad thing. Like,
Yeah.
we're allowing it.
Oh, yeah.
We could stop it, right? Because I also have always been an empathetic person.
Yeah.
Realizing that, stop watching some things because I can't handle taking on everybody's feelings about a situation. But I remember thinking, like, what am I getting out of this when I
Yeah.
allow myself to sit in the space that I know will drain me or hurt me or upset me and take me out for days or weeks? Like, what am I getting from that? Well, I know I get to avoid showing up,
Yeah.
making my dream come true. I get to avoid making money because I've got all these money paradigms.
Yeah. That's good. This is
So,
really good.
yeah, we got to go beneath the surface of, like, our reactions and why we're reacting that way, because it's always somehow that you've wanted to benefit.
Yes, it's so true. Like, I had this situation arise last week, actually, with an old friend of mine. She's just in a very dramatic place, and that's fine. Like, people go through their shit. Like, I'm not saying that in a judgmental sense at all, but I should have removed myself because I know how much it will impact me. I'm
Mhm.
like, I have clients, I have a team, I have a family that depends on me, and I can't just like go and throw my head under the sand for 3 days to regroup, like it's just not possible. And I should have set a boundary like early on before we even met up, and it's so funny. Like I've just heard this from my coach too, like these lessons will continue to come until you fully learn the lesson. And I was like, I feel like I have this down with like my immediate group. Like they know, like, I'm like, the drama's coming up, not my problem. Like, I'll literally be like, but that's not a problem, wishing them the best. That's what I'll do to like shut it down. They've all caught up on it too, which is helpful in my immediate circle. But people outside of our world, they don't know us. They don't know that we might be struggling. And I need to learn how to communicate that to people that don't know me intimately, and I need to learn how to set that boundary with like strangers. It's funny, you would think it would be more difficult with the immediate family, but for me, it's more difficult with strangers,
Yeah, the boundaries is such a big deal, and knowing what yours are. I couldn't agree more. And the other crazy thing though is when you're aware that you are attracting those people into your life.
Yeah.
Like as soon as you stopped accepting drama, you could lose some people from your life.
Yes.
And that's been really hard for myself, for my clients, for my friends. As soon as you change your expectations and your boundaries, some people aren't going to stick around because you're no longer a vibrational match for them.
Yeah.
So you start to attract people who are no drama, who are, if they sense you getting dramatic, it's like, well, we'll chat next time. And they hold you to that standard, and so it gets easier because you're going to attract what you need.
It's so true. Like over this past year, I've had the same experience, just kind of, I would say, created more distance between people, that might not be at my same vibe. Or like for me, it came up a lot of the times in clients just because I don't go into the office. So I'm not like talking to people, my team tends to be very drama free. Like they know that I just can't, we're busy, we're at work and that's just how it is. Of course, if something's going on personally, they can share that with me, but it's not this long, drawn out thing, boundaries and all that. But yeah, I like how you said like, it's difficult when they start to fall off, but it's also rewarding because you start to feel better. And then like, even for me, it started to show me like my family started to get better. Like the people that were wanting to heal, the people that want to get, mentally clear, I would say, and they're doing the work. It was like, then we were all able to kind of create more distance, and then it does get easier. And when people arise now, like in this immediate conversation that I had last week, which honestly was so random, like my boyfriend was just talking to me and he's like, you've got to like go shower it off. Like he's like, you got to just put on your armor. Like it has nothing to do with you. And like, just try to wash it physically off, like we'll do like cold showers to like try and physically remove it. Cause the energy sticks to you, it's like, it's just like anything else. It's like a wavelength. So shedding it and being able to move on faster is like also a new lesson that I think I'm learning just from, again, being a highly sensitive person, in this crazy world.
And depending how open you are to different ideas or tools, this is for anyone listening, is if you are a service-based or you're a client-facing business, a great thing to do is to give yourself 5 minutes before you're going to interact, and then imagine yourself just kind of surrounded by like a bubble or a space that keeps you and your positive energy and your goodness safe from any negativity, and just know that anything that comes will just bounce off. It cannot come to you preemptively. And then when you come into somebody who's got that space, you just know, I'm good. You can finish up. All right, we're good here. And you don't have to take any of it on. Yeah. And that's been really helpful because people are hurting and they don't mean to, but they can gaslight you, or they can come at you because they aren't aware of their reactionary type of personality. And so if we don't own it, they're not going to get any satisfaction. Yeah. So then they can just continue on their day till they find someone else who attracts reactions.
That is so well said. That's exactly the conversation that he had with me too. He's like, like it's over now, like we didn't feed into it. But yeah, I think that's the biggest key of advice is like, don't feed into it, just let it play out. That was a huge lesson for me too, like not trying to fix everything. Like I can tend to be that people pleasing. I want to help. And we can't always help, and most people don't want to be helped unless they're asking for it. So yeah, being able to like have that almost invisible barrier, I think would be helpful to like visualizing it. I'm going to use that tactic for sure.
Oh, it's so helpful. It's so helpful just mentally preparing yourself that you're okay, you're safe. Nobody can impact you unless you allow it, especially as an empathetic or a sensitive person.
Yeah.
Because of the whole gaslighting and us believing what other people say, when you don't train your brain to like question everything, it can definitely take you out. So yeah, that's a really great tool.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's so true because especially as you're early on in your entrepreneurship journey, like people arise, you're learning your ideal client and it's okay. Like don't be judgmental with yourself. If you are attracting maybe the person that isn't perfect yet, you're just learning how to set these boundaries. Like it took me, 3.5, 4 years. I'm still going through it clearly.
I feel like it's like learning to box or do karate or learning to do marathons. It's painful in the beginning and you're gonna like just growing and strengthening. It's gonna take some work. It's just like the pain that comes with a good workout. It's just really training you to be equipped for the future next client or the next hard thing that comes. You're in training because you don't want to take it as that must be a sign that this isn't for me. Or that must be a sign I can't do this. You want to make sure you're the one going into it with realistic expectations of I'm in training right now. Here we go. Like fists up, let's protect ourselves and do the best we can.
Oh my gosh. You were in training. I love that.
So true.
I needed this today. I'm telling you, like that situation, it throws you through a ringer, and exactly how you said, those negative thoughts come in. I'm like, am I meant for this? Can I handle this? Like, what if this is the person that I am attracting? And like, you start to spiral, but getting back to that, no, this is just a situation. It doesn't have to be your life. It doesn't have to be this storm, just a moment in time. It's going to pass and get back to what you're actually meant to do. Take it as a lesson. That's all that it is.
And I would pick that situation apart.
Yeah.
What about their way upset me? What was I reacting to? And how can I avoid this next time? And sometimes it might be if somebody's being belligerent or rude or insulting, excuse me, can you please stop? I don't allow that.